everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Traces. My name is Marcella Hammond, and I was lucky enough to join the V1 family in March of 2020 after 15-year stint at Right View Pro under the Mr. Don Slot, baseball and softball video analysis company. Back in 2004 when I started, it was one of the only ones on the market. So I've seen them all from here and there and everywhere and everywhere in between. So it's really exciting to be working for a company like V1 and able to see something like the pressure mat like we are today. And even from the most basic, like what is a pressure mat? I have no idea. I'm kind of in that same boat, even though I've been in this tech world for a long time. Pressure is kind of still on the newer frontier. And it's exciting to learn about it because once you do understand what it provides, things start clicking and it's a whole new ballgame. And that's what it's all about. Just always learning and growing and tweaking what we're doing as coaches and parents and players, right? So I know our sports scientist Phil will jump in on that here in a little bit, but let me just give you a little V1 background and just welcome everybody that registered, of course, on Zoom webinar link, and welcome to all the folks on Facebook Live. This recording is going to be available on the V1 Sports YouTube channel in a few days after our V1 Sports teammate Anna edits. If you registered on Zoom, you'll automatically get this link emailed to you, which is great. For those of you who are new to V1, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. V1 specializes in vision and ground force technologies, and over the last 26 years, we've supported over 4 million lessons and 10,000 affiliated golf, and now adding some baseball and softball coaches to that wonderful list. So V1 is the leader in ground pressure, and V1 pressure mat technology can uncover truths about player movement, specifically from the ground up. Tuesday Traces is a forward-thinking series where we get to talk all about things ground mechanics and sports skill development. Today, we will discuss the theory behind ground mechanics and where coaches can start. This will include the tech you need and how to start introducing pressure with your athletes. So we love answering questions throughout the webinar. Please do not hesitate to just post away all the questions. We'll make sure we get to them throughout the discussion. And for some reason, if we're unable to, because we're so full of amazing information and we can't stop, we will get back to you. Drop us an email, support or sales at v1sports.com. And without further ado, please welcome our Director of Sports Science, Mr. Phil Stotter, and our new friends and coaches, Mr. Ryan and Bob. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the family.
Thanks, Marcella. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If this is your first time here for a Baseball Tuesday Traces, welcome. If you've been here before, we've covered a lot of different things. We've covered basically a baseball swing and how ground pressure works with that. We've also covered, functional movement screens. Last webinar, we focused really on the 101, and we're kind of back there today. I'm here with Ryan and Bob at a Beast Baseball and all their other organizations. They're going to talk to you about a little bit about their bat companies and those things, and then we're going to dive right into ground pressure. This is the very first time that they have ever used ground pressure. I walked in today, right guys?
Yep, that's right.
And they've never seen this or worked with this. They've seen it, but they've never worked with it before. So we spent a little bit of time, and I'm going to get you their response so everybody can hear what their first impression was. And then we're going to run through some players. We've got 3 baseball players and a softball player here today with us. And so you guys are going to see very real what it's like to implement this, how simple it is to use, and you're going to get coaches' response to it. They're 2 bright minds, and I'll let them explain who they are and what their businesses are. So Ryan, why don't you take it away first?
Well, we just want to say thank you for having us. Phil, thank you for reaching out, letting us be a part of that V1 family, and, trying to get to know this new technology. So like Phil said, my name's Ryan. I am one of the co-directors with Bob of our nonprofit called Baseballology, Inc. And under that, we do a lot of different things. We have our Beast Baseball program, which is 9U to 12U travel program, really getting to teach the kids the fundamentals of the game and how to be a good ball player, as well as hopefully as teachers, we want to influence everything outside of baseball too. After that, we have our NP program, which is the next pitch or next play, and that's our 13U and up. And this is a program that we started this year to go a little bit further, build upon what we started in 9U to 12U, and then build upon that and advance them even further as our players get into high school, and then even some of them move on to their baseball careers into college or anything like that. So recently we started our own facility here called The Cage, and we're excited where we're going to take things with our organization, and that's one thing that attracted us to V1 and the technology you guys have going. I'll hand it over to Bob now to talk about Bill. Yes, so I'm a teacher also and coach for the past 25 years. And for the past 10 years, I've been running wood bat tournaments in Cooperstown, called Cooperstown Backyard Baseball. And it's kind of this weekend experience, very low key, low pressure. And it's all wood bat for kids. Last year, Ryan and I, going through COVID, and we didn't have a lot of things to do, and we started getting into making our own bats. So in 2020, we started the Goat Bat Company, and we specialize in from Little League all the way up to our select model, which is our high school, college, and beyond type players. A lot of things we do is custom work. So Ryan being an artist, comes up with some great ideas, or I have an idea but I can't get it out. Ryan figures out how to make it happen. So if something happened out of boredom, we needed something to do, and we started Goat Bat Company. Started a local tournament, trying to get the wood bats into the kids' hands. So it's been great. So got some kids around swinging the bats now. Some pretty high-level high school players swing the bats in New Jersey and a few other places. So
Very cool. Where can they find the bat company? What's the website?
So it's goatbatcompany.com. We got all kinds of stuff on there. And, like you said, we do a lot of custom work that maybe the bigger companies can't take the time to do, but we'll take the time to do it. So it's something that you're looking for, just contact us. It's on there, goatbatcompany.com, and we can help you out with whatever you need.
Very cool. Can I see the bat real quick?
Yeah.
So just for our viewers to understand, and not sure if you've, again, watched any of the Ground Pressure 101 or have dived into some of the materials, you and that bat or the ball or whatever it is, what that ground pressure mat is picking up is a reflection of that. Okay, so it's a reflection. So there's simple concepts when we talk about ground force, ground mechanics. And what bat you have in your hand really matters because it changes your mass. And I say this all the time, and people have heard me say it, I'll keep on saying it. There's three things that work here, guys. There is basically a large mass called the earth, right? There is a small mass called you and the bat, and there's gravity, a very large force. Those are the only three things at play in a physical sense. And so depending on what bat you have in your hands, whether it's measured, whether it's fitted correctly, all these types of things really does matter. And so understanding everything you wear, everything that you use is really important to what is picked up in the data that the V1 pressure mat picks up or captures. And so understanding that reflection concept is really important. Another really important concept is small changes. The smallest, littlest change. And we saw that today, guys, right? We went through a little bit of a mobile demonstration. We put a mat down. We got some baseball players on it. We went through just basically a swing off of a tee. And we were able to capture very small, detailed perspectives on the swing. And Bob, you made a comment to me. You said, where was this 20 years ago?
Right.
It really helps for you to see the field. And I don't know if you guys heard that. 20 years ago, we wished he had it. We all did, right? That's the beauty of technology, all right? And the hardest thing for you guys, right? As an academy, what do I bring in here? What makes a difference? How can I make them better, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. That's the big question,
Absolutely.
right? How can we empower you guys as coaches, right? What tools can be provided? Are these little gimmicky technologies? What are these good technologies?
Right.
It's up to the coaches. Great coaches like these two can take a powerful tool like this, and it can really change the outcome of a baseball player. And that's something we're going to talk about today. But I want to go into a first step here just to really give you guys a sense if you've never had a player or you've never stepped on a mat. So you guys saw this for the first time.
Yeah.
What was your first impression? Once I showed you how that worked, what did you guys notice? Let's give me a little background on what you saw.
Well, I know for me, it was just, I didn't know what to expect. I looked at it a little bit when we initially talked, but until you really get in front of you and see a player on that, see how they're moving, see, you just don't know until you actually see it. And just when you're talking about, baseball swing, it's hard to get right, and every player, and I don't know if there is a right way. And you talked about that too, because every player is different in those small changes. But giving them a strong foundation of what to build on within their swing was huge for me. You saw that right there, and we had 3 guys get up here that were completely different. And we initially were like, oh my gosh, it's right in front of us. Now we can see it, and we can have them see it. So that was huge, right?
Yeah, we say that a lot. It's seeing the field, and something, and then just seeing the field's not enough, but what's the call to action, right? Yeah. Right? How do I now interpret the see to feel or feel to see? And then how do I turn this into improving the actual baseball play? I mean, that's a really big detail.
The simplicity of it, where things like Ryan said, we didn't see at all for years. My son's 13. I haven't seen those little things that you were able to point out. The center of gravity, where's the center of gravity, which, like Ryan said, I had no clue coming in here what to expect. So the fact that it was so simple to see it and understand it, it's pretty exciting.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very good for both coaches and players, right, guys? I mean, obviously we're talking about our coach's perspective, but half the battle is showing the player, and so they can see what they're feeling too, right? It's got to be connected for both sides. So
yeah,
as
educators, like we know that firsthand. A student, and I mean, we're still talking about students of the game, right? A student doesn't really understand it until they can teach it.
Right.
And they can't teach it until they can really see it. Right. And so having them be able to stand here and look at the video of themselves swinging a bat and looking at all the data that comes up in a simple way. We're talking about a 9-year-old, 2 13-year-olds,
Right.
They saw it and they could see what it was. So that was big. Yeah.
Right. And that's the ultimate goal, is to get to them at that age where we can teach them the foundation, right? Like, this is going to be the game changer here. You guys are working with youth players in that range, right? Where they're like sponges. And if we teach them the right way now, and we just continue to develop them, use the video, use the ground pressure information, and that's how we're going to improve the game more and more, right? So
yeah, spot on, Marcella. I think a big thing too we talked about was the difference between performance technology and results technology.
right.
And how to use performance technology like V1, using the vision tool, using the ground pressure mat, how we're able to capture 2 really important pieces of the puzzle. And I think the 2 most important pieces to build the puzzle, and that's, kinetics. And when I say kinetics, that's forces that create motion. Okay, movement comes, before a force comes before an actual movement happens. And it's something we talked about last time in the last webinar, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on that today. But then there's kinematics. And kinematics is video. And every coach that's on here, you guys, we've used a camera, we've used a video camera, we've done that. But tying those 2 together, now you can understand what types of forces, or the capture or recruitment or reaction of forces that were captured by the player, and what was the output. And that's what's very powerful. There's 2 pieces here. I mean, the vision, you got to see it, right? But then you got to match up with, why did this occur? Why did this movement occur? And once we figure that out and we understand what the result of that is, whether it's a launch monitor, that's a result technology. One of the best results is in game. What happens in game? And we all know that in game is very different than in cage. And so finding those keys and understanding them and seeing those is so critical to improve and practice what works best And Ryan, you said it, characteristics. There's no cookie cutter swing. There's no such thing.
No.
All right. And it's about understanding the athlete. And we saw two distinct different stances. We saw two distinct different movement patterns. And we were able to say, no, we can't change it to this because this is the only way a batter should, set up, what the negative move should be, those types of things. We got to understand how this person moves and how they recruit the ground, how they get into the ground. And we saw them sitting on the ground, not using that ground. And by using this technology, what we're going to do in a couple minutes here is showing how quickly, and that's going to be one of my, focuses here. We're going to teach a player to use the ground today because I just basically did a baseline, and this technology is great for baselining. You're able to see what the player currently does. You know exactly how he works in the game, what he hits, how he sees the ball, how he adapts, how he reacts to it. Now, what can we do? What can we see to start that improvement cycle? All right. And then know that this person is going to be more prepared to adapt and react in a game situation.
Right.
And that's a big difference between, baseball and say golf. You've got to practice different things. You've got to practice a lot of different things because you've got a moving ball that's coming at you at different speeds. And knowing how your body works, because what we're talking about here is control of movement. All right, how can I control my movement to create the greatest power? And that's what ground pressure is able to capture, and then analyze, and then learn the calls to action to improve it. So everybody's sick of me talking. Why don't we jump into?
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Straight.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions, Marcel? Anybody have any questions for us before we get started?
No questions on the board yet, but we'll keep an eye out. Please send them there if you guys do have them, and I'll poke in on you, Phil. But otherwise, let's get them on the mat here. Let's see what's going on.
We're going to start with some basics. Make sure I got that up and you guys can see it. Good, yes?
Yes, very good.
We got a thumbs up. Ryan or Bob, do you want to take a, stand on that mat just for a second? I just want to go over some basics for the viewers here. All right. So we've got video capture here. I'm going to bring this camera over a little bit so you guys can hear me better. How's that look? Okay.
It looks great and it sounds great. Thank you.
All right. So what we're looking at here, all right, where some people are going, what am I seeing? Right. It's not scary at all. So
right. It can look scary, right? So let's simplify it for everybody.
No, exactly. So what we are seeing is a reflection of force, okay? And its magnitude is basically in what is being captured. Over total force here, okay, is Ryan's body weight. Okay, so that's one thing to remember. That first graph you see at the top of the left corner of the screen, I believe that's your left corner, my left corner, is a pressure graph. All right.
Okay.
So if Ryan puts all his weight or pressure in his front foot, you see the representation. And so it just recalibrated there, but you see the representation of that foot. Now put your pressure and let's recalibrate. So it's going to balance itself out and find them on that mat really quick. There we go.
By recalibrate, Phil, that just means getting your center of pressure right back in the middle with that little white ball there. That's
both feet on there.
looking on the screen.
Put pressure on both feet for me. Let's step off, step back on really quick. I think I just messed you up. Step back on.
That's okay. First rule of troubleshooting is always reboot. It's a good lesson.
Yeah, no, little reboot there. There it's centered. If everybody saw that, it will center you on there. We have a V1 pressure mat underneath the feet of Coach Ryan Delaney here. Okay, so it's under the batter box mat. So you don't have to worry about.
Did that, Phil, when you did that really quick, sorry to stop you, but when you put it under the mat, did you just put it straight under the mat as is? Did you do anything special to do that?
Yep. You know what? Let me show you what's behind the curtain. So nothing special. The mat is right here. I took the top cover off just to make it a little bit more sensitive, but you don't have to. But I don't know. Can you see that? So the mat's just sitting under the box there.
Very nice.
Makes it super simple.
Yep.
And easy to record. And now you don't have to worry. Now you can. I mean, we've got turf, we've got the carpet, we've got these different. We got 5 foot, we got different sizes for different stride lengths, those types of things.
Absolutely.
But so the setup is simple. You don't even know it's there. A player doesn't even know it's there, and that's beautiful. That's really important. We don't have to worry about some monitor that's in the way or a camera or those types of things. The player just is standing on the typical mat. It's got the ball in front of them, and they're standing on a pressure mat, which is recording everything that player is doing in a ground mechanics. And when I say ground mechanics, it's forces, pressure that apply that create movement. So when Ryan goes to move, even his smallest moves right now are being captured.
Yes.
That little white dot in the middle of that top graph, that's called a center of pressure, which is a direct correlation to your center of gravity. Okay.
Okay.
Now that's within the same scope, and not to get too complicated here, your center of mass. But we can see mass move. We can't see pressure move.
Right.
Okay. So I can see that if he were to go and swing the baseball bat right now, I could see his mass move. What we can't see until today, and this is something that Bob was pointing out before, was we didn't know where that pressure or force was being applied, whether it was the back foot, the front foot,
right,
where it was at contact, where it is in launch, where it is in load, those types of things. So we're able to see the feel. And when we say feel, the forces that created the movement or the power of movement, that's super critical.
Absolutely.
I had you line back up on there again.
Hey, Phil, can you just tell us about those numbers on the screen too, on the sides once Ryan gets back on there? Just kind of.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I was going to dive into that.
Cool.
So what we're seeing in that graph, and so this is, remember everybody, this is the first time I walked in here with Ryan and Bob. I know them, they're part of a league that I'm part of, but this is the first time they've seen this technology. So they're learning as you guys are learning. So it's really fun.
Yes.
So one of the things we showed before is that first graph is a center of pressure graph. Each of those graphs is the same measurement of data. It's just displayed a little bit different.
Right.
The first one is heat map. The second one is a line graph that shows velocity or rate of change. And that's really important. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then the third one is vertical force. The amount of force the player is applying to the ground, and then the ground reacting against them to create force so that they can create velocity within the rest of their body. And I know I said that quick, but 3 graphs that are displaying the same data, just different ways, so that you can see things from different perspectives, which is really important. So that first graph, we see numbers on each side, right and left. So kind of just move your pressure back and forth, okay? All right, and so we're seeing at the bottom of that graph, and let's just stand still as possible right now for a second. So we see about a 40 on the one side, we see 57 on the other side. Now lean all your weight to your left side. There you go. So that's its front side being picked up opposite. It's a reflection, like in a mirror, it's the reverse, right? You can flip the mat around and give a normal representation if you wanted to for the captured image, okay? So don't think, oh, wait, I'm never gonna figure this out. You can easily flip it. This is how I present it as a reflection so I can stay with the science of it. But what we can show you is we can flip that and give a representation, which is an exact image of him. What we're getting right now is basically the mirror image, all right?
That is a great
left
point.
is right, right is left. All right, so we have percentages right to left foot, percentages of total pressure. Let's simplify that. Percentages of the amount of weight you're distributing to one side, right? Okay. And how much force you're putting into the ground and what's being captured. Let's just really dumb it down there. The numbers on the right and left foot, the size of them, those are percentages of heel to toe. Or I like to say rear foot to forefoot. So we're capturing that. So go back into those heels really quick, Ryan. All right, see the heels? And then let's go into the toes, put pressure into the toes. All right, so now we know right to left, left to right.
Okay.
All right, we know force to the toes, force to the heels. Super important to get off that toe, at launch and get into the heel to drive those hips. Friction in 2 different directions creates torque. That's what we want. So it's really important to know where that pressure is during the swing. I don't need to tell coaches that. They all know that. And again, the force against the ground that reacts to the body is what makes the body move. I can't say that enough. Our bodies just don't move. They can fall. We can trip and slip, but our bodies don't just move.
Okay.
We've got to react to make them move.
Okay.
All right. So one of the principles we talk about a lot of times, just to really understand this, is if Ryan were to pick up his left foot or right foot and put it in the air, and now make the muscles move your foot. Put it in the air and just make your muscles move your foot. Move your foot. All right. See his foot moved?
Yes.
Really simple. Did everybody see that? Now, keep your foot on the ground and do that same action with your muscles. No, push into the ground like you're kicking it and move that foot. All right. Do you see how his body moves now, not his foot? Because that's reactive. It's creating an action of force for the rest of his body. So if he applies a lot of pressure there, his body is going to react. And when he pushed that foot in the front, where did his body go? His mass went to his right side as he pushed on the left side. A lot of people would think that's not going to happen. You push on the one side, that side's going to push, right? But you're pushing back against, how to set up, how to get into that negative move. You shouldn't just drop and load on that back foot. You should be applying pressure back to really drive to come forwards. And so we can see small things like that you wouldn't have picked up, right?
Right.
So
right. Where you just saw the video.
pressure,
It was really just a guessing game before, right, Phil? Like you could see the video and make some assumptions, but this really solidifies what you're seeing, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, no, exactly, Marcella. We say it a lot of times, the days of eyeballing need to be over.
Yeah.
I mean, there's technology out there that's giving us the ability to see the things that we just guesstimated on. And so that's really critical when you're dealing with human mechanics and biomechanics of the body. It's really important to understand how this individual is creating that action. And again, we all create action differently.
Right.
I want to talk about that little white dot. That little white dot there is your center of pressure, which is, again, a direct correlation of your center of gravity. Where is my pressure at a certain point in my movement? So let's break down like a swing, all right? Let's go from stance to load. All right, let's go into load and just hold the load. Let's go into basically a stride. Let's do a small stride. I lost you a little bit. It's okay though. And then we're gonna go into launch. So now you're gonna drive the heel, right? And so, I apologize, we got a little connection issues here, but every movement, everything that goes on is being captured, and every sequence of what's happening is being captured. It's not as simple as just seeing the individual and watching them. We're capturing how that movement was created and how much force was applied as that movement was created. Let's just go from a stance like that. Don't even stride for me, because because we got the other kids here. I put a small mat underneath it. And when you go into this actual motion, all right, you can see where his COP, his center of gravity, you could say, just to keep it simple. You can see his mass. Where's his mass at? Is right. Is he centered over his two legs? No. Right? Where is that center point at each phase of the swing? We don't want to be all, forward loaded, at contact. We're drifting through. We don't want that COP to be back. And and I'm not trying to be a coach here, but, to greatest force, I'm going to talk about it in a science perspective. We want that force to be at the appropriate places. You want your body to be in control of that force. And when we're coming through and in contact, being able to really create the most power from your body and not to be too far forward on it, not too back on it. We don't want, the flexion of the knee to allow the wrist to roll, those types of things. We really want to understand where that COP is during the swing. Tells us a lot about what the result's going to be.
Right.
And so that little white dot's super important. And then you see that little line? We call it a trace.
That's the trace.
It looks like we're tracing something.
That's right. And that's why we do it on Tuesdays, because Tuesday traces. Okay.
Exactly. So that trace, all right, let's go right to left. Just go back and forth. Push your pressure inside. All right. Now, I would tell you that could be a really great 7-iron club swing right there. All right. We got a nice linear approach, nice and soft and controlled. All right. much like I got a runner on third, I'm in an 0-2 count with 2 outs. I'm not swinging for the fences right now. All right. I'm trying to make contact to the opposite side, right? If I'm a right-handed hitter, I'm trying to hit to the opposite field, right? So I can score that runner. All right. Because me popping out to left with 2 outs isn't helping me. So maybe I want to train in a certain situation, in a certain pitch count, a different pattern of movement. And that trace is tracing your pattern of movement. And I think everyone really needs to understand that. And young hitters need to understand it's not about hitting as far as you can every time. It's about driving the ball where you want to drive that ball.
Right.
And I forget which one of you said that to me about your Bob's son, about making sure that he's driving the ball to a certain place. It doesn't have to be, you know, hit to the wall. It just needs to either move the runners, right? Or quality at bat, right?
Get it on the green.
These type of things. And to be able to teach the hitter that. How do we teach hitters that? I mean, that's one of the hardest things to teach, right?
Absolutely.
So a really key point there. Now there's 2 types of traces. All right. And so when I say that, there's 2 movement patterns.
Okay.
All right. So Ryan, let's demonstrate. All right. So let's rock forwards and back. As straight as you can, forwards and back. There you go. All right. So there's front and back, right? Posterior, anterior. Let's go side to side. Side to side. And see, when you get older, like me and Ryan, it's not as straight. You'll see some of these kids, they'll be able to control it a little bit better.
Right. On the hip.
But the older you get, the harder it is to control your body in space. Why do we retire at a certain age? Because we can't control our bodies anymore. Our bodies don't work quite the way they used to. Okay.
Accurate.
And what we're looking for is here, you're seeing that linear trace. All right, as we call it, the straight line trace. You see that? And then front to back is kind of a straight line trace. Anything outside of that right now is a ability not to control Ryan's movement. All right, I want people to understand that. That's the inability to control a straight pattern. Patterns that go from A to B in the straightest, shortest distance creates the greatest amount of velocity and the greatest amount of power. Okay? In a baseball swing, though, if you're not just hitting for contact and trying to place the ball, you want to hit the ball with some power. And that's where angular traces come in. And angular traces are a direct correlation to torque and to rotation. All right. So as the feet or pressure of the feet and areas of the feet move in different directions, that's what creates rotation. So now, Ryan, if you move your feet in opposite directions, we will create more of an angular. If you see the line, creates more angular. And once we see a swing, you're going to see that even more. But we're looking for angular because we're going from the heel to the toe to the toe to the heel, and it's creating an angular motion. And the velocity of rate of change from toe to heel or heel to toe is very fast. So it's typically just captured in an angular movement. That means I used my lower half to generate rotation. And guys, is that important for baseball?
Yes.
Very, very important for baseball. Yeah.
No, exactly. But once I get angular, I'm not able to control my movement as well. Because now my movement is moving in 2 different directions, front to back and side to side. All right. Not just that linear one that went side to side. You see how easy Ryan made that look?
Yes.
Just going side to side. That's simple, right? But when you include the front to back of the foot and in different directions of each foot, which is a baseball swing, okay, that gets harder to control. So a lot of times we see athletes not create such perfect angular lines, or we want them to be more, direct lines that have greater, angles to it. Those are traces. And traces, again, as you just saw, it's a force created that made Ryan move. All right. So
his relationship.
We don't want to see Ryan move. We want to know why Ryan moved, because that's going to tell us why he created that result. Or if he ends up too much pressure to one side of his body and he doesn't get through the swing, why he hit it to the shortstop on a slow roller and he got thrown out. It looked like a great swing, but he didn't create any force, and it was very linear. All right. And so these are things that, I mean, just that little simple graph. Look at all those details. Look at all that data. Bob and Ryan, I'll let you guys just your impression of it, because that's the first time I've told them that much detail. Thoughts on that graph?
Oh, I mean, I'm not looking at the graph per se right now, but I'm seeing it on the screen a little bit. And just the idea of tracking all of those small little movements that we take for granted. We do, you know, in baseball, we take those for granted. We don't really see it with our own eyes until we see it on a graph like this. So just seeing all those little things on there, all the different graphs, gives us a better idea of how we can help the player.
Right. No, for sure.
And the stuff you talked about, the angle, you know, you got more of those hitters. Like, it's the first time I've ever seen Xavier's swing like that. Like, it is very linear, and getting him into more of an angle, which will now get him to drive the ball even better, which, you know, 20 plus years of coaching, I haven't been able to see it. I mean, it's got a great swing, but still, as I see it, I'm like, wow, it is so linear.
Right. And nobody's been able to see this. So this isn't like, you know, you're not the last one to the party.
Right.
All right. This is the frontier. This is the new frontier. All right. And I've been in the clinical space for many years using ground pressure, ground force, those types of things. And we've been using this for medical purposes. But this is the frontier in baseball. It's still movement. It's still monitoring movement. And, you know, human performance is human performance, whether I'm walking down the road or swinging a baseball bat.
Right.
And we can start to see the things that we couldn't see without a technology like this. And with the vision and the graphs all in one, I mean, it's the perfect performance package. It really is. I know we've got some hitters here, and I really want to get them involved.
Yeah, let's get the kids
before
on
we
the
run
map.
out of time. So why don't we get a couple hitters in here, and we're going to capture some swings. And while we're doing that, I'll talk about, which I haven't really gotten into in the previous webinars, I'll talk about that velocity and the vertical force, but I'm going to stay a lot on that pressure one, just because I still think a lot of people need to absorb that a little bit more, but some really good info today. Why don't we jump in here, and we're going to take a couple of swings here, all right? And as simple as, you know, just capturing this, and we're going to capture this swing here. I should jump in there.
Right. And just so you guys know, Phil's doing this through our PC software with one of our V1 240 frames per second cameras. But if you also have an iPad, you can connect the pressure mat right to the iPad, and you're going to see the same graphs pull up. Not all three on the screen at the same time. You can scroll through the three though. You just tap it and it goes to the next graph. So this is PC or mobile friendly, just so the crowd knows that.
That simple, people. It was that simple, right?
That's it, huh? Okay.
There's a ton of information. Let's one thing I'm going to do really quick, really cool on here is I'm going to set impact really quick. All right, hold on, let me get it. Let me get my hand through a little.
So right now, Phil's dragging the video to contact as close as he can get where the ball hits the bat, and then he's going to set impact with an auto set of your key edit positions. There's golf images on the buttons, you guys, but on our baseball specific version, they're just numbers. Just think of it like position 1 through 8, whether there's a picture there or not. You can set those where you want them. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so what are we seeing here? This is about as close as we probably get closer to contact, but pretty close to contact, right? And where the pressure is, where his mass is opposite his pressure, if you notice, right? And so what we're seeing here is how he's going to the baseball swing right at contact. Each of these little buttons down here gives us basically kind of a basic stance, not really set up yet. Now he's kind of set up, right? Mm-hmm. He's getting into his load. I mean, look at how it's already identified these different phases. There's stride, right? There's launch, right? He got down into that, and was able to drive into it.
Mm-hmm. So the software itself is identifying those points.
You got it.
See, that's huge too, because that takes away time that we have to spend shuffling through and pinpointing those.
No, it's a
And
beautiful thing.
they are editable too. If you're not happy with where it put it automatically, let's say, you set impact and then you go, oh, I wish, my toe touch or like whatever you want to call it, right? Like now we're not putting names on them. You can call them what you want. But position 1 will say you want to move it somewhere else. You just press and hold that button and it will change it for you. So there's sort of like an auto set.
Around a little bit. Yep.
There's an auto set, but there's still go back and tweak if needed.
It's off a little bit, like Marcella's saying, you can tweak it. But I've heard this from a lot of coaches. I've been doing this a long time with baseball and efficiency. How many guys do you have on your academy? How many guys do you guys see through the cages? How many?
We have
89.
we have just 90 in our program.
Okay.
That doesn't count anybody that
Right.
comes in outside of that.
Right. So let's say 100 or over 100 kids, right? Do I have time to sit down with some other technology and kind of dissect it and try to figure these things out? No. I hit a button at contact and it pretty much gives me a capture of those different phases. So I understand how they're working through that swing. Boom, I've got that captured. What's really similar, Marcella, you could go into a little and go into more detail on this. This can be sent right out to the player.
Oh yeah.
Right? As a coach, you can do a voiceover.
Yeah. If
right?
we weren't
Go
on Zoom,
Marcella.
if we weren't on Zoom right now, I would tell you to just go up to your globe icon next to the student icon up top, and then you just literally hit begin lesson and start talking and drawing to record this. Whether you just want to record and give them some feedback, or you just want to see it with the graph on the screen, it could be a 5-10 second record, or it could be a 5-minute record. Either way, you do your thing, you talk, you draw, you click send, and you just send it right out to the player. So, I don't know this young man's name, but if he's walking out of the cage here and we hit record, by the time he gets to the parking lot, he already has that lesson in his bank, we call it. So he can just pull out his phone, open up the V1 baseball app, and then there's a tab called lessons, and his feedback would be sitting right there. He can watch it in the car ride home with mom and dad on the way home. So it's how quick and easy it is, and that instant feedback, and then the relationship continues because mom and dad will film them at games now. We can go get that game video that we want. Critical, right? Because what's really happening live versus off the tee here, off, controlled situation. Let's get in that game situation, get the parents to capture the video in V1 baseball, and then send it to Coach Ryan and Coach Bob, because they can't be at every game, right? Ryan and Bob, you already said, your teachers, your dads, you run a business and a bat company. Like, good luck having time going to everyone's game and getting game video, but it's where it's really convenient to have just parents, friends, players. I'm Auntie Sella. I go to the game and I film, my best 90-degree angle from the side and get that video over to Coach so he can give us some feedback real quick. So thank you for that.
Oh, for sure. And if you guys take a look at the COP team swing here, okay? Now watch where his movement pattern goes. It starts back in that, trail or load heel, right? Comes on an angle to that toe, and then watch it flatten out. See how it flattened out there?
Yeah.
Yep.
I maybe I'm wrong, but if there's a coach on here that could have saw that before I just showed that, I'd like to shake their hand, because it's super hard to see that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's something that's very difficult to see. It happened in a fraction of a millimeter of a second. And I've heard so many coaches talk about staying on the toes too much and coming through the swing and not getting the heel, creating that rotation of the hips to drive the hands.
Right.
And you're seeing it right there, and we've already identified this. And now we can work with this player on creating, greater rotation torque so that his lower half is really generating those hands to come through. And so timing and sequence and everything else. And I'm not trying to be a coach here. That I'll tell you right now, I'm not doing that. What I'm telling you is the science of what you're seeing. How to interpret this, how to see this. And what we're seeing is, force there to heel, come into the toe and flattening it out at the toe. And you can see it 95% of the toe at contact.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we got angle. We just want to drive that angle a little bit more into that heel, right? And that's going to be super important. And we talked about before, and I don't know if you can see this. That little red line on those two line graphs below the pressure one, that's the moment in time. That's the video capture at that moment, right? And that first peak, this is a velocity graph. This is measuring how fast the movement is happening. The white line going above the baseline is going lead side, trail side is the back. So we dip down back here. I don't know if you see a little hand moving over there.
Mm-hmm.
We dipped down to load back, and then we drove through, right? we see a second peak here. Second peak is typically what you're going to see prior or at contact of velocity change. Because what happens? Your velocity is moving in one direction to get the rest of your body moving. Then once your upper body takes over, that velocity changes, so you'll see a second peak. You see the two peaks there. So we were able to generate that force that way. Bob and Ryan, did we see two peaks just a moment ago?
Just a little one.
Yeah.
It wasn't, the second one wasn't, we didn't see it. No, live you're saying? On the thing we saw it, but not live. You can't see that live.
No,
Right.
for sure. And then if we look down here at the vertical force graph, and I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, people. I know I'm getting ahead of everyone, but
Okay.
that red line is total force. Trail side, or that load foot, is the yellow. Stride foot is the blue. All right. And so what do we want here, right? Do we want the load foot, the trail side? We want that to peak back here, to start to generate the force that we're looking for. Look at that force being created back there, right?
Yep.
So we're seeing that force getting created, and we're seeing, what's that, 292, of total force, slightly above, his body weight,
Uh-huh.
and then generating down when he gets to that side. Boom, that's where he drives his force, and that's why you saw that total force peak. And that's what we want to see. We want to see peaks. We want to see valleys, and we want to see peaks, and we want to see cross sections, because that's the rotation of the player creating force in opposite directions, front to back, side to side. We talked about that earlier. That's super critical to create power in the upper body, and then at contact. All right, I'm going to stop because I want to get a softball player on here really quick.
Let's do it. Yeah, we have about 12 minutes left in our webinar with Phil, just to give you a time note, okay? Maybe leave a couple minutes at the end for any questions or just to wrap it up. So about 10 more minutes here, we can roll, and that'll be wonderful.
I think what was kind of cool is that, like we didn't talk about this before, but just the idea of, you can do this, you do this with every player, but taking a good hitter, and like as coaches, like we're always looking at swings and how can we help our hitters become better.
Yep.
But taking a good hitter and doing those little tweaks on a good hitter is so huge, because how are we as coaches helping that already good hitter become even better?
Because there's always going to be
You see that the most at the highest level.
Exactly. I mean, that
So
we're
go on,
not
Marcel.
never going to stop tweaking. For the rest of our career, we're going to keep tweaking. There's always going to be something that needs to be looked at, or like you said, even at the highest level, we still need to tweak, right? So it's continual. Yeah.
Yeah, before we see this swing, I want to just sit here, and I've worked with some other coaches on this. This is a great way to baseline where an athlete is right now. It's a great way to baseline where an athlete, when they're seeing great results on the field, when they're seeing, great results from whatever monitoring technology, result monitoring technology, you're able to see what was working. And we've all been there, right? Whether we play now or we played then.
Sure.
We go in slumps, and we don't know why.
Yes.
We can't figure it out. Here's a way to capture what was working, right? And that, if there's anything that's the most powerful in this, that's a pretty powerful piece. So let's capture a softball swing. Tell me when you're ready. Good. All right, here we go. There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to do one more. Bring down that mat a little bit more. I like that one, but I'm going to do another one. There goes the softball.
There you go.
All right. So let's let it center you for a second here. Yeah. All right. And let's go ahead and make a swing. Good stuff. All right, let's take a look at that then. All right.
Okay.
So really quick, everybody. That impact really quick. Look how simple this is. Let's get impact.
Right. So that all, okay, let's say that took you like what, 20 seconds total. Get her in there, hit record. You have a hit mic, right? So you're getting the auto capture off the sound of the ball hitting the bat, Phil.
You got it.
Right? So that's another convenient factor. Coach, Doesn't necessarily have to be at the computer. Maybe he needs to load that ball on the tee, so that helps, right? Okay.
So Marcella, explain that. So there's a mic that from the sound of impact captures the actual impact.
Right. Yes, it's called hit mic detector, and basically enacts kind of an auto trigger capture save. So we have a setting in the software you can dictate how many seconds around that sound you want. You want a 3-second video for a hitter is great. Maybe if you're doing another motion, you want to see a little more, a little less, you can tweak it. So 2 seconds prior to the sound or 2 seconds after makes a 4-second clip. So it's all built-in settings and based off the microphone being detected on the computer. Obviously, it might be a little difficult. And I think Ed, one of our attendees, who's been a longtime V1 and RVP user and has some mats himself, hit mics in a cage with multiple cages is a little more difficult, right? They're sensitive to the sound, and if there's a lot of bats cracking around, that might not be as attainable. So maybe break it off, or you're doing it in a more controlled environment with a hit mic detector. Okay, so just be honest. Like, we're in a batting cage and there's cage after cage after cage. Hit mic's a little more sensitive, right? So, but this is a perfect example of where it would work very well for that.
Right. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing the angular approach. We're seeing a lot of heel to toe, toe to heel action. But again, we're seeing a lot of toe through the swing. But we're seeing an angle approach. We're seeing the body move. The hands are a little early for what I'm seeing. And coach is correct me. Right? Again, I'm not trying to be coach. A flat delivery.
Yep.
Through the actual, and we're seeing it tail off and stay, really into that, but we're seeing that drive and angular. We're seeing load through heel. We're seeing the foot slightly invert on the backside and then come off. And so seeing the hips rotate, I can see those hands stay back a little bit longer, create greater force. And again, I'm not trying to be a coach. I'm just trying to find the greatest force production here in science. We're seeing a peak here. We're seeing launch peak. It's a little bit late.
Right.
So we're seeing that because the hands are coming through. It should be happening, and then the hands, right?
Yep.
And then the force coming through, the bad angle, not a bad swing, creating an angular approach, trying to, hit the ball with some velocity here. Some things are correct. I'll let coaches, take it. We're seeing a greater amount of, force. We're seeing 2 peak forces happening, and I can see it in the movement of the body, striding in. It's a short stride. I'm not sure. She always takes a short stride, and then driving back. A lot more centered, I would say. She's getting back into that backside a little bit to leverage that ball through. A lot of neat things going on here to really kind of break it down. But again, you could say, hey, at this position, at this position, at this position.
Right.
At this position, this is what I want to see. You know what I mean? Here's what you're doing. Look where your hands are. And this is where you're really loading up to create force to drive that back. Here's load. We went from, where is it? Kind of stride there into launch. The hands are already dropped.
Yeah, right.
Hands dropped. There's vision going on there, but more importantly, where's my force, right? And am I rolling through? Is my knee soft? When I'm trying to generate my greatest power to get everything working. Coaches, what else do you see? I keep talking too much.
Like I said, the hands did fall. She kind of came straight down and then through.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, all these things can be connected, right, Phil? If you're where your hands are, what ounce it is. That gets down to bat fitting, and for your other venture that you guys have, Ryan and Bob, and how, like we talked about in the beginning, how it's all connected ultimately.
Yeah.
Everything that's in our hands and on our body has a play in what we're seeing, and now we're seeing it from the ground up, which is key, right? So.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you could just see everything is just not quite connected there yet, and the hands, along with the hips, everything is just not connected. So it's good to be able to see that and see where the ground pressure is at for her too.
Definitely.
And while we're on here, I'm going to show, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I know we're kind of wrapping up. I'm sure the guys will keep you down here for a little bit longer to talk about all this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stop sharing that because I just want to share something else with you guys and come back to our main camera here. As we're kind of wrapping up, get rid of that. I don't know if you can see this. This is our mobile version, okay? And this captures the same thing. And this is just an iPad. Yeah, I have it set up with a keyboard. But you can use the camera here. You can capture the same information. You see a little bit more detail. You can see all the different graphs at the same time. You see that the PC, working with that camera. But if I'm at a field or if I just want to throw down a mat, in a cage,
Super easy.
I can simply see all these things, right? Get the pressure. I can simply go through this type
Can you
of
bring
stuff.
it just a little bit closer for me, Phil? Bring the iPad just a little
No, for
bit.
sure. How's that?
That's better. Thank you.
And I'm able, there you go.
So you're just zooming in. You can grab the graph on the mobile app, drag it wherever you want, zoom in, zoom out. Then you can tap it and it'll go to the next graph, right?
Yep.
You show them how you can switch through the three graphics. Unlike the computer software, it displays all three at the same time. This one, you just tap and it goes to the next graph. They're all three still there.
No, all three are still there. You can capture those things. Again, this is recorded. This can be a lesson. We didn't even go into vision tools. We're really focused more on, all right, can't do things upside down, I guess, all right?
Right.
Gotta work on my dual tasking.
That's right.
You can add, you can, put in the different features of direction. You can voice over, you can work with the athlete. Let me tell you, I coach, not like these guys coach, but I coach, and it's that simple. I mean, your athletes can go and download this app for free, all right, and start capturing their swings. And you can connect them as a coach. You can do voiceover. You can take this information and you can start to work together. And when you're in season, we just got back from Ripken. And when you're in season, you don't have a lot of time to sit there with individual players. But if you knew you captured a couple of these swings just at a practice, at a field, before a game, hey, I throw down a mat before a game and capture some stuff pregame to see if they're on that day.
Exactly.
Forget just warming them up, and saying, they look good.
Take them to the tournament. Take your mat with
I
you
want to
to the
make
tournament.
sure that their body movement is happening. I want to know that this they're right on, and if there's a small correction, hitting whiffles, polys, these types of things. I don't know. I mean, how's that really helping when I got to get that hitter ready for this game? And it's super important, right?
Let's see what's
Here's
really
a simple way
Yeah.
on an iPad, and you want to hold that really quick?
Yes.
I just want to show the viewers really quick, and then we're going to wrap with that.
Yeah, it is very easy.
There's 5-foot mat right here.
There you go. There's the 5-footer. So for
There's the
everyone wondering,
5-footer.
that's going to be, anyone over, what do we say, like 5'7" in height, Phil?
Yeah, just for your taller athlete, this is, basically the size of a batter's box. This is what we use at a pro level.
Yep.
You could go with this. You could go with a little bit shorter that you saw worked.
So you're saying Albert Pujols could fit on that thing? No problem.
I'm sorry?
We can get Albert Pujols on that thing. No problem with that wide stance.
Exactly. Don't we already have them on this thing?
Right. We had him as a model at RVP, but that's a good point as far as models go, guys. What I've learned today is that yes, pro models are great and I love them for certain reasons to show me certain things, but I'm never going to be a pro model. I'm always going to be me. So why don't we start with what I'm doing? I don't care how old I am and where I'm at in my career. Just take my video and throw me on that pressure mat, and then we can see where I'm really at, right? So that's it.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about.
Before we wrap, Marcella, I want to take it back to Bob and Ryan. And now, and that's why I wanted to tell you guys, this is real. These guys have not used this. Now I just went through a lesson on how to use this technology. What's the difference from when we started this webinar today till right now? What did you learn?
I just feel like it's something that we could, like you said, lay down and make. I think as coaches, we're always trying to figure out, like we talked about at games, how do we get our player ready for that game, for that moment in time? And how can we prepare them better? And just the idea of, I carry an iPad with me to every game anyway, for different things. And now we can make that prep time really worth it and meaningful. So me seeing that and seeing that data instantaneously, I can go, okay, well let's let's see what we can do right now, right at this moment. How can we get you better prepared for that moment in time, one game, and one at bat?
And we talked before about not changing the swing. Everyone has their own swing, and as a parent, you're going to do what? You're going to take my kid and totally change everything? No, you have these little tiny pieces that, okay, well, it's this angle here as your center of gravity, or you're not driving. It's a pressure point. It's a tiny little thing which works with their swing, which I think is very bad.
Changing a kid's swing, I think if people hear that, that's like, well, you're not going to do that. You're just not going to change because it's habit. Yeah, it's habit. Our kids now, 12, 13, 14 years old, they've been swinging this way their whole life. And now we're going to try to change that whole habit. It's not going to happen. But little tweaks we can do. But we need to know what those tweaks are. And this definitely helps.
No, for sure. That's great,
Exactly.
guys.
And start them off on the right foot now. Let's get those 8 and 9-year-olds on there so we can get them on the right path and get all the coaches on the same page, talking the same language. I think that's the key here too, is like, hey, let's all agree that what's important and why, and call it kind of the same thing, so we can, start that kid on that team at 9, and by the time he gets to his 15, he's not relearning a whole new playbook like he is a football quarterback at a different team every year. It's like, get some consistency, but with proof, and the proof is in the pudding here with the pressure mat and the video on the screen at the same time. So
That's awesome. I want to say thank you to Bob and Ryan and the players that came out, for this, and for inviting V1 and myself into this amazing facility that you have here. And you guys, again, your academy, your bag company, I'm going to steal one of these on my way out.
right. Yeah, you guys got to go check
a
out.
little wrap up there, because people get sick of me talking anyway. So guys, just give them a run through of your stuff again.
Yeah, again, our baseball and softball nonprofit is called Baseballology Inc., and we coach 9 to 14s right now, and still building the organization. And it's Beats Baseball and NV Baseball and Phoenix Fast Pitch. Forgot to mention that. It's our softball program. So our place here is called The Cage, and we're in East Lake, Ohio, about a mile from the lake. We talked about the coasts earlier. We got our own coast here. It's Lake Erie. So
That's awesome.
It's like a mile from us.
The inner
And
coast.
looking for a great wood bat, very affordable price, goat bat company. Check it out.
Awesome, you guys.
Ryan in our garage. Thank you.
Support
Appreciate it.
local. Fantastic. We really appreciate everybody's time today, and thank you for joining us. And if you're interested in any of our V1 baseball softball products, or any of Ryan or Bob's products, we'll definitely get you that information. We also have ground pressure certification, so please reach out to sales@v1sports.com, and we'd be happy to help. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day, and let's keep working and keep tweaking and keep learning. That's what it's all about.